Hey, hi everybody. If you don't hear me, you will tell me. But we have quite a lot of people already, and that's Ashish, Eliza, Joseph. You don't hear me. Okay, let's do that. That's interesting. What's interesting is that I pull the plug out and then I pull it back in and it works. Okay, but in any case, thank you very, very much for being here. Okay, thank you for coming here regularly, and thank you for telling me that you maybe cannot hear me. All right, and I was just telling you who is here. That's Joseph, Julia, Julio, right? Lance, Mike, and Richard. But what we have today is very special presentation. We have a promised controversial presentation from Lancer Kind. And then we have a presentation on Llama 4, which Rushi made work. These are the two presentations, so I'll start with just saying hello. Okay. What I will start with is hello from Guayaquil, right? Ecuador. Okay, I will say hello from Houston, Texas. Must be a very important place because just today my wife asked me, how did we end up in Houston, Texas? Valid question, but since we ended up here, that is an answer. And thank you. Hello from Santiago. What I will do is this. First of all, the regular introduction. I will share the screen here. I share the screen. And that's not the screen that I want to share, of course, rather this one. Okay. And in that screen, what you really need is this AI webinar. That's what we're talking about. And I need to open chat. Eliza is from Austin. That's very nice. Okay. And what you need is this link. That's the only thing that you need. That is a bit.ly link. I'm giving you that link on the chat here. So here is our chat. And that's the link. So if you click on that link, you'll see exactly that. And for those who are new here, for them, I'm telling you that we are running this for about 3 years now, that every week we talk about what's the latest and greatest in AI, and we're interested in technology. How do you build with AI? That's what I mean saying the latest and the greatest. That goes down, scrolls down to come and show you all of the previous productions. And that's what we're going to do today. Lancer, I can tell you the story of my attempt to apply ML as a way to decide if a government is fascist. That definitely will provoke some discussion. I wonder if it will provoke even more. Yeah, Lenza, he used to call the AI she because AI was presenting it herself as she, and that was the previous provocation. Now, then Rushi is going to, he did make the RAG application on top of Elysia. What I said about Llama 4, that actually happened last time, but now it's an open source application. So the premise is great, the link is here, but how much is that true? That's what we're going to see. So two presentations, but before we do that, I wanted to mention something that Andrew Ng mentions, and I don't even want to pretend it's me. So Andrew Ng, he had a build-a-thon. Quite amazing thing. There were people who worked on 5 projects in parallel at the same time. Then he awarded prizes. They were doing amazing things, those people. That's all listed here. So if you're not subscribed, I would say yes, do this subscription. And then he talks about an interesting thing, and that is China is thinking or rethinking AI chips. Okay, and that is reminiscent. It reminds me, hi Lance, hello. That reminds me of something else. Okay, so we have political powers and we have technology. Political power China says, well, we don't like the fact that US producers are controlling our supplies of GPU. And it's kind of, and what are you going to do about that? Because they are trying to strong hand something, but the problem is that it breaks. It's okay you're a communist, but that doesn't give you a superiority in technology, and that's where you have the nerds coming to the fore, and no political power kills that. So he talks about the story and how it happens, but that delays their releases. So you're kind of killing yourself, shooting yourself in the foot. What that reminds me is that Russia is trying to do a very similar thing in their country. They're trying to become completely, and I think Lance will mention, is that a fascist state or no? Um, because they want to introduce something called Max. And that something called Max will completely control every citizen in the country, and then they have ways to do it. The problem is that technology breaks. I was teaching in Russia. I was teaching in Russia 4 years ago. Was teaching for the major bank. Now I just am surprised that it happened. And they shared that, oh, we want to make internet inside of Russia. There is a Russian writer who noted that internet by itself to Russian is a bad word because it includes the net. And net, as you might know, is no in Russian. So instead, they invented interda. And da is a Russian word for yes. But in any case, they want to completely control it. What happens is that you may want it. You may be a communist state. You may wield powers, but technology doesn't obey you. Same story. Well, we'll see how far it goes. And I never said it because I don't want people to come after me. Now, that is a very interesting letter, but nothing special, not a new course. Usually, Andrew Ain, that's a very nice rabbit, but usually Andrew Ain gives you a new course, while the one that he gives you is a next Buildathon. Next Buildathon in New York, November 14. So I told you where you need to click. Now we're quite ready to hear from Lance first and from Rushi next. So what I'm doing is I'm giving Lancer a presenter. And for that, by the way, I need to absolutely mention that I have some standing to talk because I'm Jewish, and everybody knows that there was such a thing as Holocaust where the fascists were killing Jews. So I think that my personal view is that today it's a label that everybody applies to everybody else. Everybody else is a fascist. However, Lancer will show us how to measure that claim. Okay, so I allow you to talk, all right? And you should be able to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Perfect, I do. So I will stop share. You can share.
Okay. Let's see. I remember last time we did this, there's a little bit of a hiccup to get the share
Yes,
word.
something didn't work. And you sent me the slides that I can show them in case it doesn't work, but I hope it does work because your slides that you sent me. Uh,
I don't have the share button right now, and I remember this happened before, and I
oh, it's
don't know what the
terrible.
share
I need, I know wait a second. I need to make a co-presenter. Let's see if that works. So I'm looking at all participants here, and I'm finding you again. You are at the top. Promote to panelist. That should work. Okay, now you're a presenter and a panelist. So tell me if that works. Yes, I think it does.
Okay, looks like I am got
You
all
are.
the good things. Okay, cool. Hey, folks, let me go ahead and dive into this slide deck, but nice seeing and meeting you.
What I will do though is I will be on chat so that I can participate in the discussion. And
Okay.
Stephen gave us the first definition of fascism. Okay, now we can go.
Okay, so you should see a slide there that says machine learning and fascism, or how I jumped in the deep to help my fellow people. I was interested in been taking Andrew Ng's course on machine learning, and because I wanted to get beyond just generative AI and learn more about the plumbing underneath. And I thought, well, I'm learning all this great tools. I'm learning these tools, but I need to apply them to something. So I've got like a list of things to try to apply to, and I thought, well, maybe it's possible to, like Mark just said a moment ago. He says, it seems like fascism is something that people call other people, but never yourself. And I thought that's maybe that's a solvable problem. Maybe we can make a tool that helps us determine whether a government is fascist. When I was talking to ChatGPT about this idea, it was telling me that you can't call people fascists. It claims it says the only government. So that was an interesting, whether it's right or not. That's an interesting statement. And so really, what I was looking for is a way to use data to prove whether or not a government, maybe a state government, maybe a nation state government is fascist. So anyways, I do these things. I write, I'm a computer scientist, I'm a podcaster, and and I lived in China 7 years as well. So I've been close to different kinds of governments. I'll say it that way. So I'm going to start with the conclusion slide because what it might help people who are thinking and demanding that no, this should be solved. Well, I'm not sure if it's solvable or not. Here's the details, and then I'll fill you in with a story about how I came to these conclusions. If you're doing information system work outside your domain, then you should always run the idea past an expert, and that's actually what I did because I thought, man, I'm likely to get way in over my head. I might produce something that's kind of silly to an expert in the domain of, say, political science or whatnot. So I thought I'll have to find some experts to talk to about this because I felt like this would be I was going to be jousting windmills, Don Quixote jousting windmills with this problem. This might be not very solvable. Humanities is a different domain and it has more history than computer science. And computer science is basically built on, I know it's about computers, but it's based on natural science type of learning. And there's some things that natural science does that doesn't work well in other problem domains. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. And then I decided that I think data science can be applied to fascism, but I'm pretty sure it won't be scientific. I have uncertainty about it. I actually am more on the side of you'll create something. There could be some value there, but it won't be provably scientific. You can't just like 1+1 = 2. You can't really say something is fascist, but you can make a model that has an opinion about that. Of course, your model will have biases as well. So that's where it's not very scientific. So how did I get mixed up in those all ideas? I was trying to like find something to apply my learning to. And when I was talking to a friend about who's more politically active than I am, I was and he's also wiser, I believe, too. I said, let's like warm up to something here. Let's warm up to a topic about like he also likes science fiction. So I said, well, let's warm up by like starting with stories. Like what literature shows fascist societies? What can we learn from that? And we did a show. We recorded it past tense. It hasn't gone on air yet. But we did a show to kind of start warming up on this, and I'll tell you more about that. But let's first like define a little bit of fascism, and this is frankly a horrible definition because this is the problem is it's really hard to define what fascism is. I have some models that I will show you. I have some models I've applied to science fiction literature and to the United States to kind of see what the results are. But when you get down to like the core elements, the word comes from ancient Rome. It's there were people who managed the city who were called fasci or something. Frankly I forgot the term. It's Italian. And then later Mussolini had a party called the Fascist Party. And so when people think of the classic definition of fascism, it's about what Mussolini was doing with his party, and maybe a little bit about what ancient Rome did. And so we have these symbols of what fascism that the parties use. And so in ancient Rome, they had this bundle of sticks tied together with this material, and it's kind of like to create like solidarity. If you have a lot of solidarity bound together, and then you have this axe, you can really, it's a powerful weapon or a powerful tool. And that was a symbol in ancient Rome for when you go to court or to the local ruler, if you were going to the ruler has the ability to punish you, i.e., chop your head off or whatever, or put you in jail. That axe head is the symbol of the power of penal, meaning you can take penalty from the state for something that had happened. And so you'll see this symbol. You may find this symbol in other areas too, where you see the eagle carrying this symbolism of fascism.
Linsa, I see the comments, and some of them are saying that's too far from AI. Can we get closer to AI?
Oh yeah, we're getting
I'm
there.
sorry to intervene, but
That's okay. So now we're going to talk about a little bit about science fiction and how I use an LLM to come up with a simple prototype for fascism. If we don't understand what we're talking about, we can't really talk about the AI part. So we had to get a little bit of foundation there. So I taught an LLM a model for fascism using an essay by Umberto Eco and the 14 Characteristics of Fascism by Lawrence Britt. And so I took those two models. There's a pretty good overlap between them in the Venn diagram sense. And uh, and I taught ChatGPT about it, and then I asked it its opinion on various literature. So let me show you that model and the results. I got to change my share. Let's see, where is my window? We'll just share the screen. Okay. And we're kind of exhibiting that bias, by the way, Mark. One of the criticisms that came up when we first brought up the topic was that people didn't feel like computer scientists could do this kind of job because they're not patient enough to learn about the humanities side of things. So we have to know the domain before we can apply AI to anything in a skillful way. Otherwise, we just end up with nonsense. So here's Umberto Eco's model. So he says there's a cult. I'm not going to go over all of this, but I'm just going to give you a taste. There's a cult of tradition. There's there's an existence of newspeak, which comes from 1984, where people make up new words to, like, truthiness is a great example of newspeak, because truthiness, there's only truth and then there's not truth. A few years ago, somebody started calling something truthiness when it sounds truthful. Whether it's truthful or not, that's a different matter. Uh, so, and then an obsession with a plot, a life is permanent warfare. So there's a couple of elements of fascism. So now I'm setting the stage about this is what you would have to measure in your model. And Lawrence Britt, who wrote the 14 characteristics of fascism, pretty, you can see it overlaps pretty well in this spreadsheet. There's a couple of gaps, but there's a pretty good overlap. All right. And so then I had it analyze Man in the High Castle. For example, if you know PK Dick, he, in the Man in the High Castle portrays, of course, a world steeped in fascist ideology, especially under Nazi control of the Eastern United States. So it's an alternate reality or alternate history story where the U.S. loses the war in World War II, and the Germans take half of the U.S. up to I think, approximately Mississippi, and then the Japanese get the other half of the U.S. And so the story continues in that situation. And so, of course, using this model, it did a pretty good job. I mean, anything that you and I would recognize as fascist, it can tell you that they're a fascist. So, of course, I needed to do a control. So, like the Federation in the original series of Star Trek, like let's test that for fascism. And of course, you can see they're all mostly negatives because that's considered a fairly utopian society. There's a couple items that are mixed, which is about heroism. But otherwise, the Federation is portrayed in Star Trek as an almost ideological counterpoint to fascism. It's the opposite, emphasizes diversity, dialogue, freedom, ethical restraint, etc. And then we get into like more, well, Star Wars, same situation. The Empire is portrayed as entirely fascist in both structure and symbolism. Um, and then you can go Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. It's not fully fascist, but it flirts with it a little bit, and then it has like a different frame for that. It calls it a hollowed out technocracy because they can't, they're losing their ability to build the things that they have, and so a lot of people have to deal with things that were built in the past and make it work because they don't know how to make new ones. So then I ran it against, I thought, okay, this is really cool. Let me run it against the USA. So by the way, everything I'm showing to you really isn't data science because there isn't any data here. I'm just using the LLM to give me, I told the LLM what the model is, and I said, give me your opinion, right? What I didn't do is I didn't like run it across a bunch of data that can measure those elements. But so it's a fairly, like I said, it's a quick experiment on how this would go. And this was interesting here was that there's a number of things that turn out to be affirmative in the model with the US, and there's a few things that are mixed and negative. And I thought, well, that's interesting.
Can I ask you how technical you did it? Because we're all interested, of course, not only in the results, but also in how I would reproduce them. How did you train your model?
Yeah, well, you literally take this spreadsheet with these features
Okay,
up to Lawrence Britt. I
okay.
just the things I've highlighted, and I pasted it into ChatGPT,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, please apply this model of fascism against, and I would say the Man in the High Castle, for example, and build me a table. So it would then generate this table with what you say is affirmation. So we can look in and see why we think there's a cult of tradition in this one, and it's especially in the
Mm-hmm.
Japanese Pacific states, yada yada yada. So it isn't hard to
That's
do.
very interesting. I mean,
And
the results are interesting, but of course, we all realize we are measuring what that particular experiment gives us, not in general what the truth is.
well, we don't know. It's an LLM. It's all black box, and the LLM has knowledge of these works of, and it will have the biases or that such an LLM will have. Um, so I would say, uh, I mean, one could ask, like, hallucinating. As far as I know, it isn't, because I'm familiar with these things as well. Not that
Mm-hmm.
I've read them recently, but it all seems directionally correct.
Mm-hmm.
Is that any more questions on that, Mark, or shall I talk about the training?
Is there any more technology content?
Any more technology content?
Yes. So you
Yeah.
loaded
Oh,
ChatGPT, you loaded that table into ChatGPT.
right.
What else? What other things we can learn as AI practitioners?
Yeah. Well, let's go back to the category error discussion. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
you're probably asking me, how I learn more about technology, and I'm going to teach you about why this might not be the direction for fascism,
Mm-hmm.
which might not be what people want to hear, but I think it's actually uh, what we need to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So the next step was I wanted to apply machine learning, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
what I did with the LLM isn't machine learning. That's just using an LLM to give me its opinion on those details. But the
Mm-hmm.
product idea is I wanted users to visit a website, see a description of fascism, tell them about the model that I'm going to apply, tell them how to upload data into the model. So maybe like a big spreadsheet or something like that that they collected about their favorite nation state. And then have the web app crunch the data and show results. And the outcome I was going for is people learn how to recognize fascism and are better able to select away from it, either through voting, protest, rebellion, etc. And and so the challenge here is that experts of fascism don't agree on what the features are, though there are overlapping opinions, like you saw with Lawrence Britt and Umberto Eco. But you're going to be building a product that would be opinionated rather than scientific, and
Yes,
so
aren't they all?
well, and that's the category error, is that human constructs aren't things that you can reduce into binary yes no, because there's a
Exactly.
bunch of cultural
It's
uh,
already philosophy. So if
yeah.
I can interject with something, I'll give you all a link. That's a book by Theodore Mommsen. It's quite an ancient book. It's about history of Rome, where he discusses exactly that. Who is a benevolent dictator? In the Mommsen's idea, the supreme fascist was Caesar, and he was benevolent dictator. He could establish paradise on earth, except that Brutus killed him. So a completely different point of view. But what is interesting is that that's based on a very, very ancient Roman history, and you know very well the Chinese treasure their history like nobody else, because precisely because you need history to learn. And that particular book I read in German because I had a friend who said, "Oh, Mark, you need to read that in German. That's 1,000 pages." I did it even though I didn't quite understand it. So I'm saying that fascism or no fascism, we are going into philosophy right now.
Yeah.
And what is right,
Yeah.
what is wrong is a big and wonderful philosophical question. Okay, and
Yeah.
now Stephen is attacking the evidence, so to say, and the it's called data poisoning. That's one of the attacks. That's wonderful. And I always try to step one level higher and talk about the question in a very general point of view, like what would this philosophy say about it, and what would that philosophy say about this, and that's why I brought Momsen. Now we are pretty much close to the time. uh, I hate to interrupt because it's interesting, but at the same time, I need to. So please tell
Yep.
me, is there anything else that you want to show?
Yeah. Let me close with, I talked to some experts in fascism, and they pointed
Mm-hmm.
out that there's a category error here in trying to use machine learning. And um, and I think I'll leave it at that. So that's
Well,
it.
thank you very, very much. That was wonderful. And Rushi, I mean, really wonderful because that's nothing like similar to what we usually talk about. Rusha, are you ready? And I will give you the presenter. Yes, okay. So I'm going to the list of participants here. Wait a second, where is that list? Here you are, okay? So I'm trying to find Rushi. You must be here, right? But I don't know what is your name. Trying to find Rusha Sharma. I'm going through the list here, and it is alphabetical, okay? But I don't see you. Well, that's amazing. Well, let me do this. First of all, Lancer, I will make you not a presenter. I cannot find Lancer either. That's just terrible. Okay, 1 second. Let me try to do this. I'm searching. Okay, how about that? Rusha, I cannot find you. I cannot believe that. But even if I search, I don't find you. Let me try on your last name. Okay. Okay, try that. Try to rejoin the meeting. No, I don't see you that way either. If you're right next to Ashish, maybe Ashish, you can do it. But best of all, if Rusha shares. So I hope he rejoins and I will see him. Or maybe I can share, then give you the mouse, but then you will present it on my machine, not on yours. Okay, we will have it soon. Now, what I want to do is share my screen. Okay, and meanwhile, yeah, we have more people than ever, and that provoked more comments than ever. So let me open the comments and see what you guys had to say about this. By the way, do you see my comments here? Do you see the chat? That's the chat right in the middle. And you see the chat. Okay, wonderful. So that is like very toxic stuff in the sense that emotions can fly high. So somebody is not an expert on fascism, yes. And then another argument, firm up the definitions. First, you found an electronic book and that's wonderful. Can you find it in German? Because then I will really redo what I did once. Okay, still not finding Rushi. He is rejoining the meeting, and that's all. No, not that bad. Okay, so I'm closing that chat. I'm going back to our list of people. Okay, wonderful. And that is the list of participants. What I'm doing now is I'm removing Lancer from presenters. Okay. Oh, no, I don't want to remove him from the webinar. Just making him not a presenter. Change role to attendee. That worked. Now, the next thing is I want to find Rushi. And I still do not see him. Any suggestions? Ashish, what can we do to allow Rushi to join? If not, I can probably show it. I can probably show what he did. And Rushi, are you even here? Can you help? It's amazing. Maybe you come through as a different name. No help from my friends, okay? I will attempt it on my own. What Rushi was going to talk about, and I see the chat. Oh, Ashish, you show as Ashish, and Ashish indeed is here, right? Oh, was here. You see, I'm searching and not finding. What we were going to talk, he would rejoin, okay. What we were going to talk about reg app. So the first thing is we need to look at what that is. I see you, Rushi, wonderful. So I'm giving you the presenter. Awesome. I was going to just do your show, but here you are. You are a co-host, so you can even speak, right? Can you?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. So I'm disappearing. I mean, I'm stopping my share and you can share now.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Rushi. I will be presenting how I build a RAG application using a couple very recently released tools. Our main intentions behind presenting this is to um, present all of you with something that's brand new. And again, this tool might not be at its maximum capacity, but it is taking us in a direction, and I believe it's a fantastic thing to be aware of this. So I'll go ahead and get started with a quick introduction on RAG. I'm sure if you have attended Mark's previous webinars, then he has gone more deeply into that. But in the case that you haven't, so RAG is Retrieval-Augmented Generation. So normal LLMs usually deal with having a training data and then giving you answers based on that. But sometimes the training data does not have all the information that you need. Also, the data can be outdated. So what retrieval augmented generation helps with is providing you more context-based answers to things. For example, let's say you have your company, you have your own private data, then you purchase an LLM model, you can index in your company's private data securely on top of all the public data that LLM brings. And you can continue indexing, adding additional information to it without having to retrain the entire model. And what it allows your model to do is to hallucinate much less. Not completely. I'm sure we haven't reached that point with LLM models and everything yet, but it reduces the amount of hallucinations that happen. And there are definitely RAG models out there. And the way it basically works is there is initially there is a retrieval from the data that you have provided. And then with retrieval, it does the embedding, it takes a data, it separates it into embeddings or nodes, and it basically puts it on the vector database based on the similarity of different items, how similar they are. So when you ask something, whenever you ask a query, it will find the top 6 top K elements which are closest to it, and then it makes it basically accumulates that and gives you your answer in a very basic manner. I'm sure it's much more detailed and complicated. So that's how it usually works. What and there are tools like Weaviate which hold your collection of data clusters, and what it does is that it also has its own vectorizers. Also, it has also access to third-party ones which Weaviate holds your data, collection of data, as well as it either using its own vectorizer or a third-party one, it vectorizes your data so it can be stored in a vector database to be used by an LLM model. Now, what has and from that point onwards, the next thing it usually that happens in RAG is it does semantic search, keyword search, and if something is advanced enough, it is able to do hybrid searches, which is like both of them, and it filters, aggregates all the information, so you are able to get the best possible answer for whatever question that you have. Now, Weaviate being that collection and having that integration with other vectorizers came up very recently, last week, very recently, and thank you, Mark, for sharing that with us, with a UI-based solution called Elysia, and it's open source. So right now, while I have only implemented the basic functionality using what it offers now, it has the potential for you to make it in your company's image. You can make changes to it, and you can have it work the way you want because it's open source. You can update it as you want. And while this entire process can be done using Python files and coding, I went with the approach where it is mostly no code because I have worked with Mark and Ashish with so many different labs and similar agents, and they've all been through coding and so on. And if you are someone who is not very technical, or if you're new to Python, you're new to LLMs, it all becomes really difficult to understand, and it takes a longer time, and it may also put you off. But a UI based approach will not put you off. It will make it much easier for you to understand things. So what I've done is I have attempted to create this entire flow, and I will explain it to all of you how what the process was like, what are some key components, what are the things that you will need if you wanted to do this by yourself. And we will run some quick commands on Elysia and see how it functions, and we'll end it by seeing the tree structure, which will show all the different permutation combinations of commands. So I'll get started. So on Weaviate, we have clusters, right? And clusters are clusters are, I would say, the objects that contain your collections. And these also have the ability to allow you to interact with outside outside tools such as Elysia itself, because it provides you with a REST endpoint.
So Rusha, first question.
Yeah.
That's an open source solution.
Yeah.
So it seems like, oh, great, I can build my rag and I'm good. But is it hardwired into Weaviate clusters? So you have to use them?
Yeah,
And then it's not open source? Oh, yeah, it is open source, but there are strings attached.
yeah, there's definitely some strings attached, which is that it is a purpose built for Weaviate. It connects directly with Weaviate. So while it is, you would be able to make your own open source RAG, you would still be using Weaviate if that comes to it. Yeah.
So can we say that it's the Weaviate is envious of Pinecone and they're trying to steal the same model from them? Because Pinecone is the same way. You can only run it on their cluster and pay them. Same thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you. But a ready-made solution, okay?
Exactly. Yeah, good, very good question. Thank you so much. Perfect. So we have these clusters, and when it comes to building clusters, it is very straightforward. There's some information that we have to enter. I won't be creating the cluster right now. I have some in the sample that I showed you, and I'll show you, but I'll just go through the basic information that you'll need to enter. This because it takes about 5 minutes to kind of, for it to turn on once you create the cluster. So, you just need to enter the cluster name. No other changes need to do, and then you just connect. Once that is done, once it's up, you go here, and here you'll see more information. So the REST endpoint will be available to you, and these
So
two
get an email with all that information, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. The email that you received as the one you forwarded had information. The only additional thing that I needed to do was to create this API key because it will be needed on Elysia later. So I just created the API key and I gave it admin permissions because it will be doing, it will be, because what Weaviate does, and with Elysia does not store anything. All the information about your data is stored here in collections, but all the other information as well from Elysia is also stored in Weaviate. So Elysia is just very bare bone, very lightweight. This is all the information. This is the context that was created. Um, so basically, where was I? Yeah. So that's why I had to give it admin permission here. So now once you have this available, then you go to collections. And right now I have this this available. Basically, this is the main collection that I use right now. Similarly, this one has another collection here. Initially, it is supposed to be empty. So you go to import. Once you go to import, you click on browse files, and I was able to get this nice CSV file, which was from Kaggle. Right here, it's basically a collection of SMS messages. Some of them are ham, which is legitimate, and some of them are spam. So that was the data set I was using. And then you basically find the file, and then what it does is that it uploads it. It takes like a minute, and then it when you go to collections here, it would analyze it. It would analyze unless there's any bad data, but otherwise generally it does not have any issues. So once this is done, that's when you go to Elysia. Now, right now it's not turned on because we need to, turn it on, and there are some very basic commands that come with it. And I always make a habit of creating an environment whenever I'm working on it. One thing I would like everyone to remember is that Elysia works on the highest level of Python it works on is 3.12, not 3.13, which is the most recent, I believe. So I would go and create this environment here. All right, then let's activate the environment, and it's just simple, just these commands. Installed Elysia, and then just start. So now it says that it's available on our local 8000. All right. So it's local 8000. I'm gonna this. Okay. So now we've started it. So even here, there is some configuration that we need to do. So when you're first here, there is nothing on this page, and you have to do new configuration. In the new configuration, there's some information that you need. So if you go to a cluster, here you're able to get your REST endpoint that ends up becoming your URL because it's a Weaviate cluster URL. This is how it's going to access Weaviate. Then the API key is the API key that you created right here, this one.
How hard is it to load your data?
It is not very hard because it depends. I mean, if it's a PDF file, then I would definitely have to run a Python script and not be able to do it from here. But if it was a CSV type of data set, then it's just like an upload.
Oh, nice. So how long did it take you to do all of that? The complete setup? Like 5 minutes, 5 hours?
No, it didn't take too long. The only thing that I was stuck at was for the longest time, I try to be careful and I never give admin permissions to any API keys right away. It wasn't working. And then just
it wasn't working. Okay.
So that was the main blocker, but otherwise this is very intuitive and it works smoothly. Yeah.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you for the demo. Now, if that's okay, if I will share the screen.
Absolutely. Would you mind if I quickly show, because this
Oh,
is
please. Yeah. I stole this. You're going to ask something, right?
no, yeah. So basically, because this is very ingenious. I don't know why it's taking a longer time, but I'm trying to see if so, because it has a very interesting and cool thing where it shows the conversations as as an entire tree. It's very interesting. This is another time where the demo doesn't work.
Yeah, another time. Well, you know my rule, demos never work. That if you start with this, you're good.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, no, it's so I'll quickly show it. This is what it looks like. So whatever question you asked in the chat, so initially it just looks like ChatGPT, but when you switch to the tree mode, it tells you exactly what it did. Did it do aggregation? Did it just give you a text response? So this response you'll get if it just use the LLM's training data. So you ask like, hey, what's the capital of New Jersey? It will give you that. But if it's like your data, then it's gonna do this thing, right? Also, really quickly, here.
So you can debug it more. You can understand why it is saying what it is saying, right?
Exactly. And one thing I was going to quickly go over is this approach is it's also ingenious. So they ask you for two things, right? Base model and complex model. Base model is the model is going to hit the first time. If it's complex, then it's going to go to complex model. So like 4.1 mini or 4.1. Okay. What it tries to do every time is to hit base model, so you save your costs. Another thing that it does, I think it was right here with this one. So what this does is that it tries to gather as much context from your conversation throughout the time you are using it. So what their goal is that as you keep using it more and more, by the time you are like fifth or sixth question or query that you asked in the chat box, it will have enough information that it won't have to go to complex model anymore. It will just have to use base model. But yeah, I would say yeah, I think that would
Very interesting. It's wonderful because I started doing this and, I didn't complete it. It was more work. Thank you very much. What I will do, so again, thank you. I will share the screen and I'll show you just one thing. Because now that I realize that it is open source, but that's only in words. Practically, it's just another way to hook you into Weaviate. And it's a competition with PyCon. I just look at their financials. They're very close. That's what it looks like. Weaviate is smaller, about 2 times smaller. You see it both on the income and on the funding level. So I understand now they are fighting and they are really trying to undercut each other. Makes sense. And they are not presenting the complete truth, but you showed us the complete truth. That's what it is. All right, so if we go back to what we wanted to do today, right here, we wanted to present Lance presenting a very interesting presentation on who is who, and Rushi presenting how he made Elysia work. And that's a lot. That's a lot of wonderful things. So we're coming to the end of it. And I see that Paul also says try Milvus with commercial cloud Zilis. And what would that be? Very fast access, very scalable. So what I think I'll do is also prepare that. And for the next session, I'm collecting, as usual, your feedback and your questions. So I will add this Milvis here. Why it doesn't want, I'll just type. Okay. Any more? Lance is talking about the model. Okay. Any more questions? So let me stop the presentation. Stop the share screen and ask any questions. Any questions? I mean, we tried for the first time yesterday, we tried an in-person meeting. We were together in the library. Can you imagine that? Physically walking into the library, and we had a meeting. Who came? 2 people came. It was wonderful. And one person was online. Okay, it was even more wonderful. And our biggest question was, is AI going to take my job? That's what we discussed. And the lady that came, Elaine, she essentially said what I was going to say, that it will not, that you just need to be current in AI. You know, it's a partnership, it's a friendship. That's one point of view. Another point of view, yeah, it will take away your job. But that's all very nice and positive. What I didn't add yesterday, and what I should have added is that, yeah, but it's for those people who want to be architects alongside with AI. Those people who do not, they may indeed lose their job. So if you don't study, I think the time has come. I think that there was a time in the humanity history that you did not have to study. Some people were scholars, they still did it. But there were enough people who wouldn't. Now, gradually, if things are very positive, then everybody will get very high income, guaranteed income. That's on the positive side. But it could be that before it comes societally to this, you will get very bored because you will not have anything to do. That's also a possibility. I am not going to say we will discuss it next time because we're already discussing it. All right. So I see interesting comments, but if there are no questions, then I'll just say thank you. The presenters, thank you, Lanza, and thank you, Rusha. And thank you all, guys, for that. Yeah, we need to continue, but not on Zoom because Zoom will be shut down. Instead, well, maybe we need some place to continue the discussion. Okay. If I come up with anything, then I will tell you. Okay, Lancer, thank you. Maybe we'll talk about this as well. Everybody, Have a great weekend and a great week after that and a great year to come. So thank you very much, everybody. Be well. Welcome, welcome everybody.